Hello, I'm David Harper with the BBC News. Health workers in Afghanistan say a large explosion inside a mosque in the capital Kabul has killed at least 3 people. Dozens more, including children, were taken to the city's emergency hospital. Our correspondent in Kabul, Lise Doucette, says violence has continued in Afghanistan since the Taliban seized power.
Here we are reminded again that the August 15th of last year only ended another chapter of war and then ushered in another. Over the past year, the Islamic State group has emerged as the most potent enemy of the Taliban. The emergency hospital said that up until now they've received more than 2,000 people injured by bullets and explosives, and of that terrible toll, more than 400 are children.
Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky has said attempts are being made to send UN inspectors to the Russian-occupied Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant to ensure its safety. Mr. Zelensky said his government was working closely with the International Atomic Energy Agency. Our correspondent James Waterhouse is in Kyiv.
Unable to force Russian troops out themselves, Ukraine has been staging preparations for a worst-case scenario. Emergency workers in the nearby city of Zaporizhzhia have been practicing cleaning drills in the event of a radioactive contamination. Moscow has controlled the nuclear plant since early March. There's been heavy shelling on and around the site for the past fortnight. Russia and Ukraine blame each other, but now Kyiv is warning that invading troops could cut the plant off from electricity as they try to switch power towards Crimea, which they annexed 8 years ago.
The former US Vice President Mike Pence says he would consider testifying before the House committee investigating last year's attack on the Capitol building if invited. Key witnesses have already detailed the pressure put on Mr. Pence by his former boss Donald Trump to delay certification of Joe Biden's election victory in 2020. Mr. Pence has been speaking in New Hampshire.
If there was an invitation to participate, I would consider it. But you've heard me mention the Constitution a few times this morning. Under the Constitution, we have 3 co-equal branches of government. Any invitation to be directed to me, I would have to reflect on the unique role that I was serving in as Vice President. It would be unprecedented in history for a Vice President to be summoned to testify on Capitol Hill. But as I said, I don't want to prejudge. If there's ever any formal invitation rendered to us, we'd give it due consideration.
The US Congresswoman Liz Cheney has condemned her own Republican Party for embracing what she called Donald Trump's cult of personality. Ms. Cheney, a leading critic of the former president, was speaking a day after her emphatic defeat in a primary election in the state of Wyoming. Ms. Cheney said she would make a decision in the coming months if she'll run for president in 2024. She was beaten by a candidate handpicked by Mr. Trump. World News from the BBC. Malaysia's highest court will today hear a final appeal from the former Prime Minister Najib Razak against his conviction in a high-profile corruption case. It's his last chance to avoid being sent to jail. Earlier this week, another court rejected Mr. Najib's attempts to present new evidence. He was sentenced to 12 years in prison in 2020. The United States says it's examining the case of an activist who's been given a 34-year prison sentence in Saudi Arabia for comments she made on Twitter. Salma al-Shihab had used the site to talk about women's rights. The punishment was handed down by a Saudi court earlier this month. Ned Price is the US State Department spokesman.
We are studying the case, we are studying the sentence, but exercising freedom of expression to advocate for the rights of women should not be criminalized. Freedom of expression is a principle that we stand up for around the world. Anytime, any government, anywhere tramples on such a principle, we speak out and we seek to defend that fundamental right that is as fundamental to individuals in Saudi Arabia as it is to any country around the world.
Tens of thousands of people have marched through Argentina's capital, Buenos Aires, in protests against soaring inflation and tight fiscal measures proposed by the new economy minister. One demonstration called by the main union organisation is against financial speculation and price fixing. The other is critical of measures being introduced by Sergio Massa to reduce government debt. The British billionaire Jim Ratcliffe says he wants to buy Manchester United Football Club. His spokesperson told a newspaper in the UK that Mr. Ratcliffe would definitely be interested in purchasing the team if they were put up for sale. United's woeful start to the Premier League season has led to growing criticism of their American owners, the Glazer family. BBC News.